Live in the shelter of Elyon, who spend our nights in the shadow of Shaddai, who say to Adonai, our refuge, our fortress, our God in whom we trust. He will rescue us from the trap of the hunter and from the plague of calamities. He will cover us with his pinions, and under his wings we will find refuge. His truth is a shield and protection. We will not fear the terrors of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, or the plague that roams in the dark, or the scourge that wreaks havoc at noon. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it won't come near us. Only keep our eyes open, and we will see how the wicked are punished. For we have made Adonai the Most High, who is our refuge, our dwelling place. No disaster will happen to us, no calamity will come near our tent, for he will order his angels to care for us and guard us wherever we go. They will carry us in their hands so that we won't trip on a stone. We will tread down lions and snakes, young lions and serpents we will trample underfoot. And because he loves me, I will rescue him. Because he knows my name, I will protect him. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him when he is in trouble. I will extricate him and bring him honor. I will satisfy him with long life and show him my salvation. Super powerful. You can sit down now. Not that I'm telling you all how to live. If you want to stand the whole time, that's up to you. I am a sinner just like everybody else. Okay, so as I was listening to what the Holy Spirit was telling me, one of the biggest problems that we see today, and this has been going on systemically for a long time. We don't even know how long. I haven't been alive that long to know how long it's been going on. But we can read in the Bible that it has been going on for a long time. Is a problem of identity. Who are you? Which is why the title of my message to you today is Who Are You? Okay? So there's several ways to look at this, and today is not it's not my intent to say words to chastise you and fire and brimstone you and everything, but it's just something to hopefully inspire you to look inward at yourself and go, who am I? Who have I become? Where did I come from? And we're going to cover some of that. And hopefully my wife, I didn't tell her this, but hopefully she'll keep an eye on the time because I'll talk all day and not even realize what's going on. And then Zeke will be over there starving to death or something. So when we track everything historically, right? And some of you all know me. I'm kind of a nerd, so I do a lot of like scientific stuff and things like that. So welcome, fellow carbon-based life forms. But you can track everything back to the original sin of disobedience. When the serpent was talking to Eve, and he said, God said you would die, but you won't really die. Go ahead and eat it, right? And she was disobedient, and she did exactly what she was told not to do. And I would pose maybe an argument that it wasn't necessarily the fruit of that tree, because there's been arguments like, well, what was it? Was it an apple? Chop down all the apple trees right now. We're not doing that again. Was it a fig tree? Was it an orange tree? Who knows? But it wasn't the fruit of that tree. It was the fruit of her actions. Disobedience came from the inside. She was deceived. But she still made that choice, right? I can tell the kids, hey, don't touch this. It's hot. 9 times out of 10, they don't believe me, so they touch it, and it might not be hot. I deceived you, but you made a choice. Or they might believe me and say, Dad said that's hot, don't touch it. They don't touch it. They made a choice, right? They didn't find out. I could have been totally lying, and it could have been ice cold. Who knows? But that original sin of disobedience changed Eve's identity in her own mind, in her own life, her own perception of herself. Because the part of it that did that was when the serpent said, you will not surely die, but you will become as gods yourselves, knowing good from evil. And different translations say it a different way. They'll say you will become as God, meaning his equal. We are not his equal. We are his creation, right? And we're gonna kind of touch a little bit on that as we get into here, because I haven't even got to my stuff I typed up yet. But in her mind, her perception of who she was changed. I am now a god. I am now self-serving. What can I do for me? Right? That's what kind of drives a lot of other sins. We were talking about this with another brother that came by the other day. Most sin can be traced right down to the root of selfishness and idolatry. You are your own idol. You do things selfishly because I want to do them, right? Okay, so when we talk about identity, there's several things to kind of think of and kind of spark your thought process right there and get those synapses firing is, who are you and how do other people know you? When you introduce yourself, do you say, hi, my name is Josh. I am one of the chosen people of God. It's good to meet you, right? Or do you introduce yourself as, hi, my name is Staff Sergeant Salazar. I've been in the U.S. Army for 20 years. I'm bomb tech, retired, and now I am the father of so-and-so, and I work over at this building, and I do this training things, and I'm the chief of the department. Is that my identity? It's not my identity. My identity is actually written in my DNA. I am a follower of Yeshua. I do what he tells me to do. That's your identity. That's my identity. And so when you look at the different groups of people that you may hang around with, because I don't know about you, not everybody where I work at believes that there is a God, or even that you can be a good person and go to heaven or go to hell. Some of them believe that there is nothing, that when you die, you just go off into the ether and the universe recycles your energy. So at work, they know me as Sal, mostly because they can't pronounce my last name correctly, so I just say, call me Sal. It's cool. But everywhere else, everybody knows me as Josh, right? And so my identity can kind of change from what people know me as, right? But what doesn't change is the fruit that I put out there. And the fruit that I put out there is hopefully what he told me to do, right? And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. Sometimes the fruit that I put out is horrible. I will just say that right now. But the saving grace and the wonderful mechanism that he put in place was his love. And the awesome things that when you find out and you're given that key of understanding to his word is that when you read in there, he knew you before you were even stitched together in your mother's womb. Therefore, he already knew everything you were going to do your entire life. He already knew all the mistakes you were going to make. He already knew all the bad words you were going to say. He already knew what you were about to do before you even did it, and he still gave his son for you and gave his son for me. And when I think about that, there's some pretty big guys out there that I have talked to on a deep level. And when I say big guys, I mean big dudes, probably weighing like 350 pounds when we work out in the gym and whatnot. And, they ask me like, hey, why do you do this? Or how? It could be something so simple, right? Identity. Hey, man, everybody else eats bacon for breakfast. Now, it's army bacon, so don't get, super excited. It may not actually even be pork. I'm not sure, but I'm not taking that chance, right? But they say, like, why don't you eat bacon? And I say, well, it's, one, I don't like it, and two, it's an obedience thing, because I'm not like other people. I'm not going to cram my religion down your throat and make you listen to me. But if you ask me a question, I will answer it. And so I tell them it's more of it's an obedience thing. We don't eat pork, and I don't believe in it. And then of course the conversation goes, and then I tell them stuff like, hey, all the bad stuff that we do out here while we're wearing this green uniform, the pickle suit, otherwise known as, you're already forgiven for that. At the end, you're already forgiven. All you got to do is accept it. And then as some of us travel through our path that we have to go through down life, we have to learn how to forgive ourselves, right? So it's just as big a lesson for somebody else as it is for the person telling them that is, one, God already forgave you in the beginning of time. And then you have to forgive yourself. And you have to forget that, just like you forgot everything else already, right? And that's the beautiful thing about that. Now, that's not like, 007, I have a license to sin, because he already forgave me and he already knew I was going to do it, so he already pre-stamped my license card. Every 10 free ones you get a sandwich or whatever. It's nothing like that. Right, but you'll discover that as you go down your path of finding out who you are, where you came from, and where you're supposed to be, right? So, along with the people at work and the people at church, do your in-laws know you differently? Are you different around your in-laws, or are you the same? Just things to ask yourself. When no one's looking, does your behavior change? When no one's looking and you accidentally stub your toe on the old coffee table thing or hit your hand with a hammer, do you just let it fly? Or are you like, dear Lord, thank you that my hand still works and I can feel things, right? We're all guilty of both. I'll stand up here and doggone take a knee just as low as anybody, because I am super guilty. Now, when we get a little bit further down the road, as far as like who do other people know you as, because that's the person that you put out there and put forth, right? That's that face we all put on in the morning. I'm not talking about like ladies with the makeup, but it's the thing that we say. You get out of your car and you're like, yeah, praise God, I love you. Then you get out of your car and you walk into the shop where you're working. You're like, what's up, dude? Hope you don't smack your head today. Or you say other things when you walk in the shop because they go, hey, it's Sal, and you're like, what's up? And, all of a sudden that like soft like praise thing went out the door, and now you're like this hardcore, stone-faced person. It's different. But when you look at where you come from, that has a lot to do with things. And some of it is where you come from. Like you'll see some of those people. I've ran into people in the military all the time, the gingers with the red hair, and they'll be like, I'm 3/4 Irish, so that's why I'm always mad. I'm like, no, you're always mad because you can't find any happiness in things, because your happiness is in being angry, and that doesn't work, and that's why you're mad. There'll be a lot of times you'll be able to tell certain cultures who certain people are from their cultural activities, right? So, if you notice, October's coming up, right? So there'll be all these people out wearing lederhosen, drinking giant beer steins and beers and stuff, and you'd probably be like, I bet that person's probably German, right? They come from Germany, right? It's a regional thing. Or if you see the people out with their rugs on the ground and they're facing the east and they're doing the little prayer thing like that, you'd be like, okay, that person's probably from the Middle East or something like that, right? Or everybody sees I know it's probably not appropriate, but you'll say, hey, that person's Indian, and then somebody will be like, oh, like feather Indian or like the red dot Indian. Cultural differences, right? It sets apart your identity from the mass of everybody else that's out there, right? There's certain cultural things out there, too, that drive how people conduct themselves, even to the point where their belief system in that culture will drive them to live a certain way, right? And I probably spelled it wrong on my thing here, but feng shui. Anybody ever heard of that? Somebody says, yeah, we live feng shui, right? So I had the pleasure of building a house for some people that were of that belief system. I'm not sure what it is. I don't think it's a religion or anything, but and they have certain rules that they have to live by. They can't have fire across from water, and you can't have a door that opens up at the same time a window across the room, because then all the good spirits will fly out of the house, out of the door. And I was thinking to myself as we're sitting in this pre-construction meeting, like, one, why you leave your door open, the thermostat is right there, and two, if the spirits are trying to get out of your house, you might want to look at what you're doing in the house, because if they were good spirits, they would want to stay where good things happen. At least in my simple mind, that's what I'm thinking, right? Not all And the other thing, speaking of belief systems, is not all beliefs or religions, I use that term very loosely, very loosely. Not all religions are the same when you go to different places. You go to a Catholic service over in Rome, it's probably way different than one that you go to in downtown New York City, right? Not only will the traditions be different, the words might be different, the messages might be different, their standards might be different, whereas in Rome, maybe they all wear togas when they go there. I don't know. Maybe in New York, you have to have a 3-piece suit to get in or something. Who knows? Right? But the other thing is that some of your traditions may or may not carry over from generation to generation. And traditions, we all know, are part of our identity, right? There's certain things that my grandmother does that I don't know where it came from, but now that I'm actually studying in the Bible about some of the old Hebrew traditions, it makes sense now. It's not exact, but you can see where it kind of maybe had got lost a little bit through the generations. Somebody was like, I don't know, why do you do that? I don't know, it's because Grandma did it. Well, why did Grandma do it? I don't know, go ask her. She'd be like, stupid, because my mom did it. And then so you go back and if you're able to, get in the time machine or the DeLorean and go back in time, you find out those have a root. They came from somewhere. And the question is, where did it come from? Right? So over time, which is what we're really looking at here, over time, what changed? And how does that dictate who you are today and who you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to be going, right? Okay, so throughout some of the early texts in the Torah, we see that Yehovah refers to his chosen people. So the first question is, what does it mean to be chosen, right? So in Deuteronomy, let's see, I don't know if that's the second slide, I can't remember. I don't have the clicker thingy. In Deuteronomy, it says, for you are a people set apart as holy for Adonai your God. Adonai your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his own unique treasure. Now that should make you feel good about yourself right there. If nothing else in the whole wide world does, you are his own unique treasure. Right? Adonai didn't set his heart on you or choose you because you numbered more than any other people, and we're going to get to that in a second. On the contrary, you were the fewest of all peoples. Rather, it was because Adonai loved you and because he wanted to keep the oath, keyword, which he had sworn to your ancestors, that Adonai brought you out with a strong hand and redeemed you from a life of slavery under the hand of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So here we have a little bit of history of why you are chosen. Why you are chosen. There's a lot of people out there that misinterpret and misunderstand the concept of God's chosen people. They think, well, it's just the Jews, just the Jews over in Israel. So the rest of us are chopped liver? I don't know about you, but that would not make me feel very good, right? And I don't really have very many feelings, but when you understand what it meant to be chosen and have that covenant, the oath that God made with Abraham, and we're going to get to that in a second, back in the day, then it should make you understand a little bit more of who you are. You're not just that retired EOD guy. You're not just that retired person who used to teach people with learning disabilities. You're not that old greasy, gray-bearded biker. You are a chosen person. You are a chosen person, right? And it matters who chose you. It really, really does. Really, really does, because there's only two people that will choose you. One of them's after you, trying to steal you. The other one chose you already. All you have to do is say, I accept. We're cool, right? Okay? So his name is actually written in our DNA. And why is that significant? Well, one, it's his name. And we just read that if we know his name, we can call on him anytime. Like I said, if you remember the last time I was up here filling in for Pastor Jeff, we can't just call God dude, because when you call on him, you can't be out in your foxhole or in your front yard going, dude, I need help. The neighbor will come over and mow your grass for you. That might be the only dude that's out there listening, right? But you got to know his name. And every once in a while, my boss and I will get into a heated discussion. We'll say that aggressive negotiations of what that means. And she's saying something that's right, and then I'm saying something that's right. And sometimes we just argue about being right. Mine never gets recorded. Hers is always right, but it's okay. We'll move on. But his name is actually written in our DNA. And I'll talk to Kyle, but there's actually several videos out there if you want to get super into the nerdy world of looking at your DNA and like protein bonds and free radicals and things like that. But there's all kinds of stuff out there. The one that I like the most myself is the one where Ben Stein is talking to a biologist, and they break down your DNA to its molecular level, and there's his name. There's his name. Now, where else do we see people writing their names on things, right? Artists, when they create a beautiful painting, right? Picasso, what's another one? Van Gogh. I'm not an artist, so I don't know these people. Some other, what'd you say? Rembrandt, there's another one. Okay, I'm sure I learned about all these in school, but I was not interested in art. But they create a beautiful painting no matter how long it takes, right? Some of them weeks, some of them months, some of them, whatever, and they go crazy eating the ink off the thing. But they write their name in the bottom because it's theirs, right? So it can't be copied, it can't be stolen, right? Someone can't take it and say, no, I did that, right? So why do you think he would put his name in our DNA? Why would he sign us as his creations? Because we are his. Because no one's going to steal us from him. As long as we want to be with him. Now, because we are sentient and because we have the gift of free choice, we can totally turn our back on him. However, I would strongly advise against that. You may not have turmoil in your life, but if you have turned your back on God and you are not experiencing turmoil, I have a message for you. It's because you're already lost. You're gone. You've already made your decision. Now, the best thing about being humans, we can change our mind, right? We can go down that path, and the devil's like, come on. And you're like, okay, I'm coming, right? And he's like, you win the lottery. And you're, oh, wow, I'm buying a new car, and I'm buying a new house. I got 10 girlfriends, and I got all this money. I'm going to get rings and jewelry and all this stuff. And he's like, awesome, come a little further. And so you're like, oh, what can be better than winning the lottery, right? And you walk, boop, 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 right? And then you meet, like, people that will just shower you with the same stuff. But it's all just stuff. It's all garbage, right? Who are the treasures? We are. We're the precious treasure. And he wants us back. He wants us to come back to him, right? So it doesn't matter what happens in your life out there. What happens is what you do in your relationship with him. Now, if you're a believer and you are doing your best to be obedient, that's the most we can all do, right? We can only do our best to be obedient to him and what he has commanded us to do. And you're getting attacked, and nothing in your life is going right, and everything's just bad. People are dying next to you. People are stealing from you. People are breaking your stuff, being mean to you at work. I got a message for you. You're doing it right. You're doing it right. Because if you were on the path to the devil, he doesn't need to attack you anymore. You're willfully going with him to the lake of fire. You're marching right there, right? Some of y'all got your 5K shoes on, and you're going so fast, right? But if you're headed towards God, you're messing up his mission. You're messing up the devil's mission, which is steal, kill, and destroy. He wants to steal you from your Creator. He wants to kill your joy, and he wants to destroy your life and everything around you so that he can turn you around. You turn your back on God, and you start heading his way. And then he goes, come on. Well, I would pose to you this, and I kind of got off my lesson a little bit, but that's okay. Zeke, how we doing on time? We doing good? Good. Okay, good. We got more time. If not, we'll just set all the clocks back, and I'll get some more time. That's not how it really works, but if you are seeking things and stuff, if that is your primary focus, I got to go to work because I got to make money. I got to make money because I need to pay my car payment. Got to pay my car payment because I bought this Bentley so I could go 6 miles down the road to my job, right? And I'm not saying don't have a nice car, whatever. Have a nice car if you can afford it. But if it robs you of your time with him, if it is a distraction of your time with him or from your walk with him, then you need to reevaluate. And so that's why there's also this identity thing, right? Some of these preachers are out there like, all you got to do is pray to God and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Which heart? The one that tells you to look at those naughty images on the internet? The one that tells you, like, you need to have the same car as your neighbor or he's cooler than you? Or is it the heart that's after God? Because if you're obedient to him, then you want to know him more because he says, come find me. He's right there. When I was a kid, and this is kind of a little bit of a sidebar, but when I was a kid, my grandparents, who were super strict, to the point where when we got in trouble, we'd had to go pull weeds in their yard, and their yard was nothing but weeds. So we just turned it into a parking lot if we got in big enough trouble. But they used to, when their eyes were opened, and this was in their 60s, and my mom might correct me, because I was just too little and I didn't care about anything. But it wasn't until we'll go late 50s, early 60s, when their eyes were open, the veil was pulled off of them, and they realized that they had been doing the wrong thing their whole life. They both had a talent for music. My grandpa used to play the accordion, which I thought was like super nerdy back in the day. Now that I actually know what an accordion is, he was actually very talented. And I know there's a tape out there, like an actual tape. I know, not right. There's a tape of them playing, and I was hoping I could get a copy of it one of these days. And my grandma used to sing, and they would record themselves on the old tape players with the push buttons and whatnot, And they had a song that said, "If you're looking for the Lord," right? Sounds silly, but it would just be my grandma singing and my grandpa playing the accordion, right? It goes more, it's more like boop, 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 like that. But, and part of the reason I might have had a hard time in my early life was because I used to make fun of them when they would sing. Because, you hear your grandparents singing and you're a young kid and, you're listening to like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and some of those other things. And then you hear grandma and grandpa out there belting it out with the accordion and you're like, wow, that's super cool. And so we would make fun of them a little bit. Not to the point where we were being obnoxious or anything, but we'd laugh and kind of change the words on their song. But my grandma had a song and she would say, like, if you're looking for the Lord, you won't find him in the trees. You won't find him in the rocks. You won't find him in the clouds. You'll find him in yourself. And she was absolutely correct on that. Now, I will not sing that rendition of it for you because it's terrible. And I might accidentally go back into what I was making fun of their song. But, and I don't want to do that on the internet because then it's there forever. But when you're looking for him, you'll find him. And where you're going to find him is inside you, right? Even lost people. Anybody ever hear those people that are like, the non-believers don't have God in them? That's absolutely false. His name is written on their DNA. Absolutely false. If God wasn't in them, then how did Pharaoh's heart get hardened? If God wasn't in the lost people, then who told the king to throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace? Who holds the keys to the universe? It's him, the creator. His name is on it. He wrote it. He orchestrated all of it. It's our job to find him and understand it. And please, give me more. Where are you? Where are you today? Right? And then, like I was saying to my brother over here, every once in a while, we just need to shut up and listen. If you've ever been in a Salazar household, you will know what I'm talking about. When you start talking and everyone starts talking over you, to you, and sometimes it's better to just shut up and listen, right? Okay, so back onto the lesson plan. That was a good sidebar. Yah made a covenant with Abraham. In Genesis 15:16, it says, only the fourth generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Amori be ripe for punishment. And in Genesis 15:17, we skipped a little bit. It says, after the sun had set and there was thick darkness, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, which had passed between the animal parts, because there's some sacrificial animal stuff that goes in there. And then it says, that day Adonai made a covenant with Abraham, or Avram. I have given this land to your descendants, is what the covenant was, right? Then in Exodus, he appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, although I did not make myself known to them by my name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Also with them I established my covenant to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they wandered about and lived as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the people of Israel, whom the Egyptians are keeping in slavery, and I have remembered my covenant. God didn't forget about his covenant. So sometimes the translations mess it up, and our understanding messes it up. God doesn't forget about things, right? Other than the sins that he forgives you. He takes those, casts them off into a lake of fire. They're gone. It's not really remembering. That's kind of like destroying, right? Or forgetting. But he didn't renege on his covenant, his promise, his oath, right? So that kind of takes you to the point where we talk about covenants and oaths, right? What's one of the more popular oath everybody is familiar with, right? Is when you stand up before God and the preacher and everybody in the congregation and you say, I do solemnly swear to protect you and love you until the end of time, until death do us part, blah, 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 right? That's an oath. You are making a promise in front of God and everybody, whether you know it or not, that you're going to take care of that person the rest of your life, and you're going to love them the rest of your life. Now, some people don't take oaths very seriously, and we see the problems that they have after that. Right? There's emotional baggage. Sometimes there's kids that come along with it, and now they're, they don't know which mommy and daddy are the better ones and stuff like that. But that's a product of not honoring your oath. That's a product of not keeping your promise, right? Some of the other oaths that we're familiar with are the ones, I promise to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States, right? And if you violate that oath, violate that one in particular, you probably go to jail, right? So there's consequences for breaking your oath. So that's why he set the original example of keeping your oath, and they called it a covenant, right? And the difference between an oath and a covenant, oath is something, you might stand up and hold your right hand up and put your other one on a Bible or something like that, and you make this promise or this oath, right? But in the biblical terms, a covenant is a relationship between two partners who make binding promises to each other and work together to reach that common goal. They're often accompanied by signs and ceremonies, and they define obligations and commitments, but they are different from a contract because they are relational and personal. Contract, you sign it, I sign it. There's some stipulations in there. If you don't uphold yours, the contract is null and void. We slap hands, walk away. Maybe we're not friends. Maybe we are friends. A covenant is personal. God made a covenant with his creation that he wrote his name on, and he kept it. Now, not to say that the Israelites were perfect, because they did complain about everything under the sun. It was hot. God made water come out of a rock. You had your own splash zone out in the desert, and they complained about it. They were out in the desert wandering around, paying for their grumbling and groanings and sins, and birds brought them food, and they complained about the food. But God didn't let them starve to death because he knew he had to keep his end of the covenant he had made with Abraham. Right? So, when we talk about this covenant and his name is in our DNA and stuff, let's tie in a couple other things to his name being in our DNA, right? Now, we all would agree that Yeshua was his son, right? And I know there's people out there that get into the arguments of the Trinity and they don't understand how it works, but we don't understand how time works either. If you were to ask somebody, if I go back in time and take $1 off my dresser 20 years ago, what are the effects of that? They might be like, well, you'd just be missing $1. But what if that was the $1 that I gave the homeless guy on the street and told him, hey, God loves you, and that changed that entire person's life? Now we're talking about the butterfly effect. So we don't understand how time works, okay? If we were to go forward in time and do stuff and then come backward in time, would it be different? Or if we went backward in time and changed things and came forward in time, would it be different too? We don't understand. So let's not even open that can of worms. I mean, that's great that people speculate and things, if the DeLorean was real and Marty really went back in time and did all that stuff, that's great. But that's all just speculation, right? But, okay, when we talk about his presence and we call him our Abba, our Father, right? He's our creator, he's our Father, he's our healer, he's our fill in the blank, everything you possibly could need. That's what he is for you at that time, right? At the appointed time. And so if he's our Father, according to the way that biblical traditions are kind of set out, we're entitled to something, like a birthright. And in those days, nowadays we call it like it's your will. So if I die, you get my Transformers, and you get my Micro Machines, and you can have all my money in my sock drawer, right? I think it's like $5. But we call it like an inheritance, right? But with our Creator, it's a birthright, and we're entitled to it because we are his creation. We're his offspring. He made us, right? And so a lot of people, because they don't know who they are and they don't understand their identity, have given away their birthright. They've let it fall away. They left it. They left it on the steps of the courthouse because they didn't even know that they had a rich Uncle Bob who left them $1 million, right? And they left it there because they didn't know, because they didn't care, because they were too interested and focused on following whatever they were chasing, whether it was money or cars or what. Some people even will chase education. I'm not stopping until I'm a master of everything, right? And so they're seeking false wisdom, but the Bible even has a couple of scriptures about that. I think I shared that with you, right? Where the people who claim to be wise are actually fools, and their foolishness will be thrown back at them, right? Because most of the education now is based on stuff that we think we understand and we don't know. But it's sad to me to see how people are throwing away their birthrights for a cup of pottage, if you will. A couple of y'all might have heard me say that. We're trading our birthright, our eternal place in heaven with our Creator, with our Abba, with the person who signed us, and we're trading it for a 2023 Cadillac Seville. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but it might be, right? Or we're trading it for that brand new Jeep Commander that's coming out. I don't think that's real either, but I just made it up, right? Shows how important it is. But we traded it for that. So in the end, and I do believe that, we're getting pretty close, real close to the end. When it comes down to it, and we hear that shofar blow, and then all of a sudden we start floating up there, right? I don't know if this is how it really works or not, so don't hold me to that. But we start meeting them up in the air, right? Where's your truck going to be? Where's that Cadillac going to be? Where's all that money in the bank going to be? Exactly where you left it. You are not taking that up there because that is garbage. Because who is the treasures? We are. We are the treasures. Not that stuff, not the things that have been created by man's hand, right? Those aren't the treasures. Your birthright is the treasure to you. He wrote it in your DNA. If you don't believe me, watch that video. There's some people who their eyes have been opened, and they can see these things. They can prove these things. And a lot of times, just in my random rabbit holes I like to go down on the internets, a lot of these people who set out to prove that there is no God end up proving that there is a God. You're good. I got it. I'm not crippled. And so, how awesome is that? That God doesn't even have to do anything because it's already been done, because he already knew who they were before they were stitched together in their mother's womb, that they would someday set out to say, there is no God, and he didn't even have to say anything because they had to walk away with their tail between their legs going, well, I guess there is a God. And it all comes down to accountability on that one. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting on my soapbox on that one. But when you try to prove that there is no God and you end up proving that there is a God and you got poopy face walking away, that's because now you have to be accountable for your stuff. Everything you ever did, everything you ever said to anybody, everything you ever did to anyone, or how you treated people, how you were disrespectful to your mom or to your dad, or the other way, how you were super helpful, you're accountable for that. That's why they want to prove there is no God, because if there's no God, there's no accountability, which is happening a lot now, we see in society, because they took God and they put him on the shelf, and then they pushed him to the back of the shelf and put a bunch of books in front of him, a bunch of other crap in front of him, a bunch of other this and that. And if you don't believe me, just watch TV. It's so irritating when the commercials, all they do is scream at you. But all that stuff is in front of God, because you can't see God, and you're not accountable for your stuff now. And now you can, and because we're not accountable for anything now I can just, in society, right? Now I can just go out and I can say whatever I want to say. I can be whoever I want to be. And we got people who don't know if they're one gender or the other gender, and then there's 87 different genders. But if you have to spend 30 minutes explaining it to me, it's not real. It's not real. Want to know how I know? Look in your DNA. Look how many chromosomes you're either one or the other. God only made two. There's only two flavors. That's it. Right? So, it doesn't say, and then on the 12th day, God made these gender fluid people, and he made that out of some leftover stuff and sprinkled some glitter in there. We don't really know what it is because it takes 30 minutes to explain, but we omitted that book out of the Bible. No, it doesn't say that. It says he created man and he created woman, and that was it. That was it. And if you look in there, in a lot of the translations, it also says, and God created, fill in the blank, and it was good. That means he was done. That means he was satisfied with his creation, and it was done. And that's it. You're not going to change it. You're not going to go against what the creator of the universe, who signed his name in your DNA, designed you to be. It's false. It's fake. It's deceit. We're back at the serpent, at the tree, and everything's cyclical. We're back at the serpent at the tree telling you, you are your own God, accountable only to yourself for what you do, and you're not. That's the deceit. You're accountable to the creator of the universe. If he created you, he can definitely uncreate you. So, when we look at the universe through our eyes as men and women of science, we'll say that lightly, they say matter can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. And that energy is not lost. It's only changed into something different. Want to know why? Because you're not the creator of that. Only God can say, you know what? I think I'm done with this sun, and it's gone, as in never existed. He's the only one that can do that because he created it, right? So, I'm sorry, that was another weird sidebar that we got on. We still doing good on time, Zeke? Okay, cool. All right. So the next thing is the scattering, right? Everything ties together. You'll all see as you go on into your rest of your Sabbath and you think about this stuff. But the scattering, right? So we go back to God already knew all the steps you were going to take, all the moves you were going to make, all the people you were going to help or hurt. He already knew all that before you were stitched together in your mother's womb. So we go into Leviticus when God scattered the people of Israel, right? Not all of them, but most of them. And he says, but if you will not listen to me and obey these mitzvot, if you loathe my regulations and reject my rulings in order not to obey all my mitzvah, but cancel my covenant, which they cannot cancel because he made it, then I, for my part, will do this to you. You will disperse among the nations, and I will draw out the sword in pursuit after you, meaning he's going to make you go. Your land will be a desolation and your cities a wasteland because of your disobedience, because they grumbled, they complained. God gave them water from a rock, and they were like, but it doesn't taste like anything, right? He brought them manna from heaven, and they were like, spaghetti sauce would have been nice too, like a nice marinara to dip it in or something, right? He complained about it. Can't ever be good enough, right? So he said, all right, you're done. I'm going to scatter you out. And it was done as a punishment because of their disobedience, because he already knew they were going to be disobedient because he wrote his name on their DNA, and he knew them before they were made. But he also knew that they would go out into the rest of the world. So the punishment wasn't really a punishment per se. It was more of a plan, right? Because God already knew what was in their hearts. He already knew what they were going to do. So he said, I've got to put my people out there so that they can take the word, which is me, out to the world. And if his name is written on you, if his name is signed in your DNA, you are part of him, right? We are in him. We are his precious treasures. And he put us all out in the entire world. Put us everybody out there, right? So he spread out 10 of the 12 tribes to the four corners of the earth because of their disobedience. Now, the second order effect was that his people were now spread out, and they were able to share their customs. They were able to share their identities with everybody out there, right? Because most of everybody out there was all sinners and just like everybody else, right? And so just that spark of the conversation. Hey, how come you guys don't eat pork chops? God told us not to. Huh, who's God? Let me share a story with you, right? Now, there is I want to say a slight misconception sometimes when you hear people talk about God turning things for good, right? We all have heard that, like, well, God will turn that around for good. Well, my father-in-law, and I'll give some props out to him. He said something that made us both giggle, but it's absolutely true. He said, he was telling me about a quote that he had heard from somebody else, and he said, Did you know it just occurred to me that nothing ever occurs to God? He already knew. He already knew, right? So if he already knew, and this goes back to the whole understanding of time flow and everything, but if he already knew, then the plan was already there. The plan was already there. He already knew that the Israelites would complain about everything. He already knew that they would complain about the water and that they would just not be happy. And they would say stupid stuff like, we should have just stayed in Egypt as slaves. Yeah, because I like getting the crap beat out of me all day for making bricks. That sounds like super fun, right? Instead of camping out in the desert eating manna. I don't know what it is, but I hope that he'll let me taste it when I get there. Kind of curious on that cuisine, but he already knew all those things were going to happen, and he already knew what was going to be needed in the rest of the world, and that was the plan, to put his precious treasures to the four corners of the earth with his name signed in their DNA so they could share their traditions, so they could share the things that he gave down to them, because a lot of tradition is rooted in the commands that he gave us, right? And put them out there so that they could share with the rest of the world, so that the rest of us could be grafted in. So that was the big plan all along. We just didn't see it because we were too busy following our own deceptions and our own wants and our own desires, right? Now, back to the birthright. If the devil can convince you to be someone else, he's convinced you to voluntarily give up your birthright. In Matthew 7:23, it says, "Then I will tell them to their faces, I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness." So if you throw your birthright away and you get rid of your identity, when it comes down to it, and he goes, "All right, next, who are you?" You'd be like, "Josh, I'm Staff Sergeant Salazar, 20-year EOD tech, retired." He's going to say, "I don't know, you get out. You're done. I threw away my birthright. All because I wanted to be disobedient and chase things that didn't really matter in the end." Right? So your identity has a lot to do with what actions you take and how you conduct yourself. So there are people who only do good things to make themselves feel good about their life. I'm sure we have all seen those videos of like the guy that's kind of dressed up grungy or whatever, and he goes around and he like hands homeless people on the street like $20 and then videotapes them and does all this stuff. Did he share anything other than a $20 bill with them? Did he share them maybe who their true father was, who their true creator was, anything? Or is he just, and I'm not picking on the guy. I'm not saying don't do good things for people, but don't do good things for people for you. Do good things for people because that's what our creator told us to do. That's your fruit. That's how people are going to know who you are, is your fruit. And so, if you're just going out and doing good things, just make yourself feel good, make yourself feel better about, I don't like to walk behind every homeless person, so I'll give a couple of them, $10 or whatever, buy them a pack of beer or whatever. Make sure you're not doing it just for you. Make sure you're doing it because he told you to do it. He sent us out there to the four corners of the earth. Maybe he sent us with a couple extra lunches or a couple extra bottles of water or something like that, or a couple extra dollars, And some people will be like, "Well, how do I know it's not a scam?" Hey, if it's a scam, it's on that person. It's on them, not on you, right? So we need to make sure that we're doing things and being obedient because that's what he told us to do. Now, all throughout the Bible, we're told who people are because it's important. It creates that expectation on that individual to act a certain way or have certain traits or characteristics. And so a lot of times you'll see in the Bible, it'll tell you, like it'll give you a little bit of a story, and then it'll say this was the son of this person, and this was the son of this person, this was the son of this person. And that's so that you can understand throughout those generations the expectation on that particular individual because of their identification, right? Because back in those days, things were actually passed down, and they stuck a little better. Nowadays, we have TV and Game Cubes and video games and iPhones and stuff, so everybody's identity is just everything, right? So hopefully I have inspired you to look a little bit inward, maybe if somebody's out on the internet or something, I don't know. But hopefully I've inspired you to look a little bit inward at who you are. Where did you come from? Why is his name on your DNA? It's because he signed you. So ask yourself a couple of questions as we go out, and this is my last two things. This is the real rapture, right? I can't do like Pastor Jeff and say this is the pre-trib. But this is my last two things that I want to leave you with today. If you're gaining massive amounts of treasures here on earth, ask yourself, am I who Yahovah wants me to be? If your focus is gaining things here on earth, are you who he wants you to be? Just ask yourself that. And I'm pretty sure if you're a believer, the Holy Spirit will come and slap you upside the head and say, no, right? And you might have to dig yourself out of a hole if you bought the brand new 2023 Cadillac thingamabobber, right? I don't know what anything is anymore because I don't care. But anyway, I know my truck turns on every time I get in it, and so that's a blessing, right? And I'll leave you with this last thought. What you seek, you will find. What you seek, you will find. So if you seek treasure, if you're seeking, I don't want to say it and get in trouble with Pastor Jeff. If you're seeking individuals to just spend the night with, you'll find them. If you're seeking drunkenness and lawlessness, you will find it. But if you are obedient and you seek him, you will find him. And you don't have to really go that far. Look inward. Look inward at yourself and ask yourself, am I who he wants me to be? Am I at the place that he wants me to be? Am I going down the right path, or am I over here on the side road stopping at all the dang stands and buying stuff? Or are you sprinting towards him and going, I got to find you. I need to know, right? We are all responsible. I know, I get it, minus the little ones who don't know better. But we are all responsible for our path that we walk and how we walk it. And when we get to the end, he's going to either say, well done, or I don't know you. It just depends on whether you gave up your birthright or not, and whether you know who you are or not. Because he does say that we are his precious treasures. Each and every one of us is a precious treasure. And so that's why I think the judgment might be a little harsher on those who rob him of his precious treasures. That's another conversation for a different time. But I would like to thank you for your attention today. And then let's go ahead and have the kiddos come up. We'll pray over them because they're our precious treasures too. Yeah, good. Thanks, Dave. No, we have digital Pastor Kenny, right? No, I can't sing. I can do my hands like that, but I can't sing. I mean, I physically can sing. Yeah. I can hold one of them. You got it? Okay, cool. Awesome. We have some awesome guys here. All right. I'm going to pray over the kids real quick, and then I think we have digital Pastor Kenny who will do the Aaronic blessing. Okay, ready? All right. Father, we just come to you today, Lord, and we thank you for these precious treasures underneath this talit, Father. We just ask that you would send a legion of angels to guard them and watch over them, especially their minds and their hearts, Father, that the world outside would not influence them to change or lose their identity or give up their birthright, Father. Lord, we just ask for protection over them each and every day, whether they're at school, whether they're at home, or whether they're out in the yard playing, Lord. We thank you that each one of these children is a precious treasure, not only to us, but also to you, Father. And we ask you for strength, Lord, that you would just embolden us to make sure that we head off any attack on our kids, Lord, especially from the outside world, from the unbelievers of all this lies and deceit that happen out there, Lord. And we just thank you for each and every one of them, Father, and praise you and thank you in your Son's holy name. Amen.
יברכך וישמרך פניו עליך ויחונך יישא לך שלום.
He who exists kneel before you, presenting gifts, and will guard you with a hedge of protection. He who exists will illuminate the wholeness of his being toward you, bringing order, and he will provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. And Jehovah, he who exists, will lift up this wholeness of his being and look upon you, and he will set in place all you need to be whole and complete. May Jehovah grant all the desires of our hearts, fulfill all of our purposes and all of our petitions. May Jehovah hear from heaven, quickly answer all of our requests, save us in the day of adversity, and in the name of Yeshua the Messiah, defend us from our enemies, from poverty, and from bondage. Shabbat Shalom.